Myth or fact, can eating too much protein damage your kidneys? Protein has become the star of modern eating. Shaker bottles clatter in gyms, high-protein labels crowd supermarket shelves, and people tracking calories often push their protein number higher than any other. Alongside the enthusiasm sits a stubborn warning that refuses to die. Eating too much protein will damage your kidneys. The claim sounds serious, almost clinical. It is repeated often enough that many people treat it as settled science. Yet when you look closely at what kidneys do and how the body handles protein, the story becomes more nuanced and far less alarming. To understand the myth, start with the organ itself. Each kidney is a compact, fist-sized bundle of plumbing and sensors. Blood arrives with every heartbeat and flows through millions of microscopic filters called glomeruli. Water and dissolved substances cross into channels where the body reclaims what it wants and lets the rest continue as urine. Glucose, amino acids, and electrolytes are pulled back into the bloodstream. Urea and other wastes proceed onward. When kidneys work well, you do not notice them at all. Energy stays steady, fluid balance remains on track, and waste does not build up. Protein is part of that everyday workload. A steak, a bowl of lentils, or a tub of yogurt is broken down into amino acids that the body uses to build enzymes, hormones, and tissues. Processing those amino acids produces nitrogen containing wastes that must be excreted. From that simple fact comes a common leap. If protein creates more waste, then more protein must wear out the filters. It sounds logical, but it confuses work with injury. A faster heartbeat on the stairs is a normal response, not damage. In the same way, healthy kidneys are built with reserve capacity and adapt to routine variation in diet. So where did the warning begin? In clinical care, people with chronic kidney disease are often advised to moderate protein. That guidance makes sense for kidneys that have already lost reserve capacity. Reducing the protein load can help preserve what remains. Over time, the rule for patients was misapplied to the public. A message designed for impaired kidneys was retold as a rule for healthy ones. The two situations are not the same, and the evidence does not convert into a blanket warning for everyone. Another source of confusion is a normal response called hyperfiltration. After a protein-rich meal, filtration temporarily rises in healthy kidneys. It is an adaptation, much like breathing faster during a run. The filters are not being scraped or scarred. They are simply working a little harder and then returning to baseline. Long-term harm does not follow from this in people with normal kidney function. When damage does creep in, it usually comes from very different forces: years of poorly controlled blood pressure or blood sugar, heavy smoking, sustained obesity, and a salty, ultra-processed diet. Lab numbers can cloud the picture further. A muscular person or someone who just ate a large meat dinner can have a higher serum creatinine on the next morning's test. Creatinine reflects muscle and recent intake, so the number can look unfavorable even when filtration is fine. Good clinicians verify with repeat tests, check trend lines over months, or use another marker such as cystatin C that is less influenced by muscle. Context turns a worrying snapshot into a calm story. Real life provides the strongest counterpoint to the myth. Strength athletes and higher protein dieters have been common for decades. If reasonable high-protein eating reliably injured healthy kidneys, we would have seen a lasting surge of kidney failure among these groups. We have not seen that. The patterns that do predict trouble are familiar: uncontrolled blood pressure, high blood sugar, smoking, long-standing obesity, and salty, ultra-processed food. Meanwhile, people who favor higher protein within balanced diets and drink fluids consistently do not, as a rule, watch their kidney function decline because they ate chicken, fish, beans, yogurt, or tofu. None of this means that more is always better. Push any nutrient to extremes and you will eventually invite problems. The widely quoted recommended dietary allowance of 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day prevents deficiency for most adults. Many do better with modestly higher intakes, especially if they train, are older and preserving muscle, or are in a calorie deficit. But extreme numbers paired with dehydration, minimal vegetables, and a reliance on processed meats are not wise. A final nuance matters. Protein never arrives alone. Roast chicken, tofu, and bacon can carry similar grams, yet each arrives with a different package. The first two are mostly protein with helpful nutrients. The last adds sodium and additives that push blood pressure and mineral balance in the wrong direction. Plant proteins often bring fiber and potassium, which support metabolic and vascular health. Lean animal proteins contribute iron, zinc, and B vitamins without the sodium bomb in processed meats. Choosing the package well supports your kidneys even as you raise protein. Viewed through physiology and population experience, the scary headline dissolves. Healthy kidneys are not fragile glass. They are resilient organs designed to flex with what you eat, drink, and do. Keep the foundations in place: sensible blood pressure, steady blood sugar, adequate fluids, and a diet built from real food, and protein does not stand out as the villain. It fits into the system and helps you feel and function better as the years stack up. With the fear put in context, the next step is practical. How can you use protein to feel and perform better while keeping your kidneys happy for the long haul? The most helpful move is to choose a range rather than chase a perfect number. The standard recommendation of 0.8 grams per kilogram is a floor that prevents deficiency for many adults. People who are active, trying to manage appetite during weight loss, or aiming to preserve muscle as they age, often feel steadier at modestly higher intakes. A sensible range that lands around 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram works well for many. It is flexible, not dogma. On hard training days, you may drift higher. On lighter days, you will drift lower. The average over time matters most. Distribution across the day matters too. A single protein mountain at dinner with very little at breakfast and lunch leaves long gaps when your body has little raw material for repair. Spreading intake so that each main meal carries a meaningful portion gives your muscles repeated chances to build and helps keep hunger predictable. Many people notice they snack less at night when breakfast and lunch include real protein, not just coffee and a pastry. The change is not magical. It is simply biology working with you instead of against you. Hydration sits beside protein as a quiet guardian. Healthy kidneys do not need heroic flushing routines. They thrive when you drink to thirst, add a glass with meals, and increase fluids on hot days or during heavy training. Pale yellow urine is the simple, everyday sign that you are in a good zone. People who use creatine, train hard, or eat more meat than usual can be deliberate about fluids without turning water into an obsession. What the kidneys do not enjoy is the combination of dehydration, lots of salt, and strain. The rest of the plate decides whether a higher protein pattern is friendly or frustrating. A day built from salted jerky, refined starches, and a token side of greens puts pressure on blood pressure and metabolism. A day built from fish, eggs, yogurt, tofu, beans, whole grains, and vivid fruits and vegetables moves in the opposite direction. Produce brings potassium, magnesium, vitamin C, and phytochemicals that support vascular health. Legumes and whole grains offer fiber that feeds a healthier microbiome, which in turn influences inflammation and metabolic markers tied to kidney outcomes. When people hear higher protein, it is easy to imagine steak crowding out everything else. The most kidney-friendly table is still half covered in plants. Lab results deserve calm interpretation. A single elevated creatinine is a nudge to retest, not a verdict. Muscular people often sit near the upper end of the normal range. A steak dinner the night before can move the number. Exhausting training can do it too. What matters is the pattern over time, how your estimated filtration behaves across months, and whether a second marker such as cystatin C points the same way. Most of all, the heavy hitters of kidney risk still rule the outcome. Chronic high blood pressure and poorly controlled blood sugar will hurt filtration far more than a reasonable, plant-friendly protein intake. Even the old fear that protein drains calcium from bones looks different when the diet supplies enough minerals and plants. After protein-rich meals, calcium in urine may rise, but so does absorption in the gut when calcium intake is adequate. In balanced eating patterns, higher protein supports muscle and can coexist with strong bones, especially in older adults who are trying to keep strength for independence. The story is less about protein harming the skeleton and more about building meals where protein and minerals live together. There will always be situations that call for individual targets. If you live with chronic kidney disease, have long-standing diabetes or high blood pressure, have donated a kidney, or have recurrent stones or gout, speak with a clinician or a renal dietitian about your own range. Precision is not punishment. It is how you protect an organ that is doing vital work under extra strain. For everyone else, the broad rule is simple. Let protein serve you rather than scare you. Choose versions that come with helpful company, keep salt modest, and treat water and sleep as basic maintenance. The kidneys will do what they have always done, quietly and capably, while you live the habits that extend their life. That is the promise of a protein-forward pattern grounded in real food. Less hunger volatility, better recovery after training, more support for muscle as the years pass, stable energy across the day, and kidneys that do what they are designed to do, filtering quietly and efficiently in the background while you get on with your life. By now, the shape of the truth is clear. In healthy people, protein is not a toxin, it is a tool. The reason the warning persists is that bits of real information float around without their context. You may hear that protein raises filtration for a while and assume that means damage. You may read that people with kidney disease benefit from moderating protein and conclude that protein must be harmful for everyone. You may see a single blood test with a higher creatinine and connect the dots to last week's menu. None of those leaps holds up when you fit the facts back into place. Consider a common story. Someone in midlife, tired of feeling sluggish, starts to lift weights and walk more. They add protein to help recovery and to feel full during weight loss. A routine lab draw soon shows creatinine a touch higher than last year. Panic flashes. The mind blames the diet, yet a quieter look offers alternatives. Muscle mass is up, and creatinine partly reflects muscle. Dinner the night before the test featured steak. Hydration was poor after a long day. The clinic used a different lab method than last time. The sensible response is to repeat the test under steady conditions, consider cystatin C, and step back far enough to see the whole picture: blood pressure, fasting glucose, sleep, weight trend, and training consistency. If those are moving in the right direction, the kidneys are being protected, not harmed. The same patient might also worry about kidney stones after hearing that meat raises acid load. It can, and in some people that matters. But the biggest drivers of stones are chronic low fluid intake and high sodium, the quiet twin habits that concentrate urine and tilt chemistry the wrong way. Ironically, very low dietary calcium can raise risk for certain stones because calcium in food binds oxalate in the gut and keeps it from being absorbed. A protective pattern looks remarkably ordinary: fluids throughout the day, modest salt, normal calcium mostly from foods, plenty of vegetables and citrus, and animal protein in reasonable portions. That pattern helps many people even if they never think about the word oxalate. At this point, it is tempting to split the diet into camps, as if plant protein were angelic and animal protein were always dangerous. Reality is less dramatic. A kidney-friendly pattern usually leans plant-forward and still contains animal foods that are simply prepared. Beans, lentils, tofu, tempeh, and soy milk bring fiber and potassium that support blood pressure. Fish, eggs, yogurt, and poultry deliver protein without the sodium bomb that often hides in processed meats. The contrast that matters most is not plants versus animals. It is whole foods versus ultra-processed foods. There is also the question of extremes. If a moderate intake helps, why not go very high? This is where common sense re-enters. Pushing protein to the point that other nutrients are crowded out, vegetables disappear, sodium creeps upward, and hydration falls behind is not a winning long-term plan. The problem is not protein in isolation. It is the neglected context that turns a helpful tool into an unbalanced routine. When the broader pattern is sound, protein rides along as an ally rather than a threat. When the pattern frays, even good things struggle to help. Framed this way, the claim that too much protein damages healthy kidneys becomes both too vague and too certain at the same time. Too much compared with what baseline, for how long, and inside what lifestyle. Kidneys do not listen to protein grams in solitude. They are responding to blood pressure, blood sugar, body mass, medications, sodium, fluids, and the steady drip of habits across the years. In a life where those inputs are mostly favorable, protein does not mark you for failure. It helps you build a body that treats kidneys kindly. Lab interpretation is where a lot of fear is born, so it is worth spelling out how clinicians think. A single value rarely answers anything. We look for patterns across time, ask about the meal before the test, review training, supplements, and hydration, and choose the filtration marker that makes sense for the person sitting in front of us. Someone with more muscle may appear to have a lower estimated filtration rate if we use only creatinine. Adding cystatin C often brings the estimate back in line. The point is not to game the numbers, it is to measure what is actually happening. Finally, there is the lived experience of people who adopt a higher protein pattern sensibly. They report steadier appetite, easier weight control, better training recovery, and preserved strength as they age. Those benefits matter to kidneys indirectly. Better weight control improves blood pressure and glucose. More muscle improves insulin sensitivity and balance. Regular movement encourages hydration, better sleep, and saner food choices. In other words, the lifestyle that rides along with a well-built, higher protein pattern is the same lifestyle that quietly protects filtration. If there is a theme running through all of this, it is that kidneys like stability and proportion. They are happiest when the body's signals are calm and predictable. Protein can be part of that calm when it helps you eat in a way that tames swings in hunger and energy. It ceases to be helpful when it becomes an excuse to ignore vegetables, fluids, sleep, or blood pressure. In the end, the kidneys do not need you to fear protein. They need you to build a routine that respects them. Translating the science and the common sense into daily practice is less complicated than the myth makes it seem. Begin by choosing a protein range that matches your body and your goals rather than your anxieties. If you are generally healthy and active, a modestly higher intake often makes life easier. Enough protein stabilizes appetite, supports training, and helps preserve lean tissue during weight loss. Those gains usually show up not as dramatic moments, but as an ordinary day that feels calmer. Breakfast that carries you to lunch without distraction. A workout that leaves you tired but not wrecked. And an evening where the snack cupboard calls your name a little more quietly. What sits beside protein matters just as much. A plate that regularly includes vegetables, fruit, whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds, and some dairy or fortified alternatives creates a mineral landscape that kidneys recognize. Potassium, magnesium, and fiber ride along with these foods and support blood pressure and metabolic health. When meals look like this most of the time, protein no longer has to carry the whole story. It blends into a pattern that keeps the pipes clear, the pressure gentle, and the chemistry steady. There are also quiet guardrails that protect filtration without turning eating into a project. Keep salt modest so blood pressure stays steady. Respect sleep, because lousy sleep stirs hunger and raises stress hormones that push sugars and pressures upward. Move daily, even if it is a walk and a few sets with a resistance band. Drink enough fluid that your urine stays pale and you feel alert. These are not headline tricks, but they define the environment in which kidneys either struggle or thrive. When the environment is friendly, protein's role is simple and helpful. What if a lab result rattles you? Ask to repeat it under standardized conditions. Eat your usual meals the day before. Avoid unusually large servings of meat the night prior. Hydrate normally, and schedule the test away from a punishing workout. Share supplements and training details with your clinician. so the numbers can be interpreted fairly. If a second test still looks off, discuss adding cystatin C to refine the filtration estimate. Seek patterns rather than single points. Look at blood pressure trends and glucose control over months, not days. Those lines tell the real story. Of course, there are people who should personalize beyond general advice. If you live with chronic kidney disease, long-standing diabetes, or persistent hypertension, or if you have one kidney or recurrent stones, your target range and your choice of protein sources deserve tailored guidance. That does not mean you must fear protein. It means you will shape it around your situation, just as runners shape mileage around an old ankle injury. A dietitian who works with kidney patients can help you protect filtration while still meeting your goals for weight, strength, and energy. Even for healthy people, keep humility in the plan. It is easy to turn nutrition into a contest of ever higher numbers. A rate that felt helpful at first can slowly climb until meals become a wall of meat and powders, vegetables shrink, and water bottles gather dust. When that happens, the problem is not protein itself. The problem is the loss of proportion. A measured approach leaves room for plants, for flavor, and for the social parts of eating that make a pattern sustainable. It also leaves room for seasons of life when training or appetite changes, so your plan can flex without snapping. The last word belongs to the promise that protein holds when used with care. Done well, a protein-forward way of eating makes it easier to do things that protect your kidneys for reasons beyond protein. You maintain a healthier weight. You keep your legs and back stronger so you fall less and move more. You sleep better because late-night hunger is quieter. You find that blood pressure, blood sugar, and energy are steadier across the week. In that sense, protein functions like a supportive friend who helps you keep the promises that matter most. So, myth or fact, can eating too much protein damage your kidneys? For a healthy person living a balanced life, the answer is mostly myth. Protein does increase the kidney's workload for a short time after a meal. In the same way that a brisk walk raises your heart rate without harming your heart, that rise is a normal, adaptive response in a healthy system. It is not a sign of injury. The kidneys were built for fluctuation. When blood pressure, blood sugar, sodium, hydration, and weight are kept in a healthy range, protein rides along as an asset rather than a threat. For people with kidney disease or significant risk factors, caution becomes wisdom. Protein remains essential, but the dose and the sources should be chosen with an eye to the organ you are protecting. In that world, precision does not take away choice. It focuses it. And for everyone, the deeper lesson holds. Kidneys do not need you to fear a nutrient that your body uses every day. They need you to build an ordinary, sustainable routine that treats them with respect.